Most people misunderstand self-care. They imagine comfort, indulgence, escape, soft music, warm baths, temporary relief. But that version of self-care is shallow, and it does not last. Real self-care is far more demanding. It is self-respect in action, and that is something most people quietly abandon every single day. Stoicism teaches a truth modern culture avoids. You do not care for yourself by soothing every discomfort. You care for yourself by refusing to betray your principles. You do not love yourself by escaping pain. You love yourself by becoming strong enough to face it. Marcus Aurelius once reflected that the mind absorbs the quality of its thoughts. What you repeatedly allow into your inner world becomes the shape of your character. Over time, the way you think becomes the way you live. This message is not for those seeking comfort. It is for those seeking solidity. For those who want discipline, dignity, and inner strength that does not collapse under pressure. What follows are not gentle habits. They are stabilizing ones. They rebuild your sense of self until you're no longer easily shaken by the world. If there is one distinction that defines a grounded, self-respecting individual, it is this: they live by principles, not by emotional impulses. Most people allow their emotions to decide their behavior. They wake up and react. Mood determines effort. Frustration dictates speech. Fear shapes choices. Pleasure overrides responsibility. And the result is instability. Promises are broken. Standards are lowered. Regret accumulates. The Stoics rejected this entirely. They believed that emotions are natural but unreliable. They rise and fall. They exaggerate. They distort. Principles, on the other hand, are steady. They do not change with mood or circumstance. A person guided by principles does not ask, "How do I feel?" before acting. They ask, "What is right?" That question alone changes everything. Wisdom allows you to see clearly rather than emotionally. Courage allows you to act despite fear. Justice anchors you in fairness even when it is inconvenient. Temperance keeps your impulses from running your life. When these guide your behavior, you gain self-respect. When emotions dominate, you lose it. Think honestly about moments when you acted purely from emotion. You may have felt relief in the moment, but afterward there was a subtle cost, a sense of weakness, a loss of control, a quiet disappointment in yourself. Now remember moments when you acted according to principle instead. You stayed calm. You held your ground. You told the truth. You followed through. Those moments did not feel dramatic, but they felt solid. That solidity is self-care at its highest level. A simple internal filter can transform your decisions. Before you act, pause and examine whether your response reflects wisdom, courage, fairness, and restraint. If it is not, wait. Delay is not weakness. Delay is discipline. This is not emotional suppression. Stoicism never demanded numbness. It demanded leadership. Emotions can exist, but they do not get to command your actions. Another form of self-respect lies in protecting your mind from unnecessary strain. Most people exhaust themselves fighting battles that were never theirs. They worry about outcomes they cannot control. They try to manage how others feel. They replay conversations. They predict reactions. They carry responsibility for things beyond their reach. Stoicism draws a sharp line. Some things belong to you. Most things do not. Your judgments are yours. Your choices are yours. Your actions are yours. Everything else exists outside your authority. When you confuse this boundary, you suffer. When you respect it, you regain peace. Every time something disturbs you, a single question matters. Is this within my control? If the answer is yes, act deliberately. If the answer is no, release it completely. This is not indifference. It is focus. It is choosing not to waste your life force on noise. Many people are overwhelmed not because life is unbearable, but because they refuse to let go of what does not belong to them. Once you stop carrying the weight of other people's reactions, the future, or random outcomes, your mind becomes lighter. Your energy returns. Your self-respect grows. Emotional strength also depends on your ability to pause. Modern life trains instant reaction. Notifications demand responses. Conflict invites escalation. Discomfort triggers avoidance or attack. But urgency is a trap. The Stoics knew that power exists in the moment between impulse and action. The pause is where choice lives. An emotion itself cannot destroy you. What destroys you is reacting without reflection. When you pause, even briefly, you interrupt the automatic cycle. You give reason time to speak. A disciplined pause involves stillness, breath, observation, and choice. You stop moving. You slow your breathing. You name what you feel without judging it. Then you decide how a principled version of yourself would respond. That pause may last seconds, but it can prevent years of regret. Most conflicts, damaged relationships, and personal setbacks come from moments where no pause existed. The words were said too fast. The action happened too soon. The emotion took control. Mastery does not mean absence of feeling. It means sovereignty over reaction. Another Stoic discipline strengthens resilience long before challenges arrive. It is the practice of preparing the mind for difficulty instead of assuming ease. Many people collapse under stress not because adversity is extreme, but because they expected comfort. Stoicism removes that illusion. By mentally rehearsing small setbacks, you reduce their emotional impact. Delays, criticism, misunderstanding, inconvenience. None of these surprise you anymore. You have already accepted their possibility. This is not negativity. It is readiness. When a mind is prepared, adversity loses its power. You respond with steadiness instead of shock, calm instead of resentment, flexibility instead of collapse. Preparation also deepens gratitude. When you stop assuming that everything should go smoothly, ordinary moments feel lighter. Peace becomes more visible. Another essential practice involves confronting yourself honestly. Most people avoid self-examination because it is uncomfortable. They distract themselves. They rationalize. They blame circumstances. But avoidance does not protect you. It imprisons you. The Stoics used reflection not as punishment, but as liberation. Writing forces clarity. It exposes patterns. It reveals where you acted well and where you compromise yourself. Honest journaling is not about self-criticism. It is about self-respect. When you stop lying to yourself, you stop undermining your own confidence. Through reflection, you see your emotional triggers, your repeated excuses, your unhelpful beliefs. But you also see progress, discipline, strength you forgot you had. Clarity builds identity. Identity builds discipline. Discipline builds a life you trust. Strength is also developed through discomfort. Modern life encourages avoidance of difficulty. Convenience is prioritized. Discomfort is treated as failure. But comfort weakens character when it becomes constant. The Stoics deliberately practiced controlled hardship, not to suffer, but to remember their strength. When you choose small discomforts voluntarily, you train your nervous system to remain steady under pressure. Cold exposure, silence, simplicity, effort. These remind your mind that discomfort is survivable. Discomfort becomes training instead of threat. This practice builds confidence rooted in experience, not affirmation. You no longer need to convince yourself that you are strong. You know it because you have endured. Self-respect grows when you stop negotiating with every impulse and start honoring long-term strength. Finally, one of the most underestimated forms of self-care is the ability to say no. Many people live exhausted lives because they lack boundaries. They say yes out of fear, guilt, or habit. They sacrifice their time, energy, and focus to avoid discomfort. But every unnecessary yes is a quiet rejection of yourself. Stoicism views boundaries as definitions, not barriers. They define what you protect, what you value, what you refuse to sacrifice. Saying no does not require anger or explanation. It requires clarity. When you guard your time and energy, your life becomes more intentional. Your confidence deepens. Your inner world stabilizes. Some people will resist your boundaries, especially those who benefited from their absence. That resistance is not a reason to retreat. It is confirmation that the boundary matters. Each no creates space. Space for focus. Space for growth. Space for peace. These practices are not motivational ideas. They are structural habits. Together, they form a life built on discipline rather than impulse, clarity rather than chaos, strength rather than comfort. Self-care is not indulgence. It is commitment to your values, even when it is uncomfortable. You do not become unshakable by avoiding hardship. You become unshakable by choosing who you are again and again, regardless of circumstance. If you apply even one of these principles consistently, your inner world will change. Your reactions will slow. Your decisions will sharpen. Your confidence will stabilize. That is the beginning of real strength. And strength, practiced daily, becomes freedom.